Okay, so now it's better for white to either capture the pawn on c5 or to develop this knight on f3 so that he can guard this d4 pawn. But instead here Tal decides to castle queenside, and that's an inaccuracy because now black immediately captures on d4 and Tal recaptures with the e pawn, but now black can continue this game by playing knight to c6, creating pressure over this d4 pawn. And if knight to f3, simply black can castle, and let's suppose to minimize this pressure, if queen to d2, now black can go for queen to d5, and this position is better for black due to two reasons. First of all, black has the long-term advantage of this bishop pair, giving them control over the board, and secondly, more critically, white king is dangerously exposed on the queen side while black king is safely castled on the king side. This allows black to launch a direct attack on the white king in the future, whose defensive pawns are vulnerable and can be easily opened up. Okay, so in the actual game, after this move, yeah, here black decides to castle short side. And now for black, rook d8 is recommended so that he can support this d5 pawn, but instead he goes for queen to f4, creating pressure over this d4 pawn. And here it's better for white to capture this pawn on d5, but here Tal simply defends this pawn by knight to e2, also attacking this queen. But the problem with that move is now you can see this knight blocks the route of this light square bishop, and now it's better for black to just slide this queen to g4 and then go for the move knight to b4 so that he can create some attack on this queen. But instead here black brings his queen to e4, asking for a queen exchange, and that's a mistake because after exchanging the queens you can see black will lose all of his pressure and advantage, and which he created. And here Tal happily goes for queen takes e4. He exchanges the queen, and now he feels pressure free. And now Tal goes for king to d3. Clearly you can see he wants to go to king to e4 with the idea of f5 and king takes g5. And the only way to tackle this is simply pushing this pawn to g4, giving up this pawn on f4. And let's suppose if if white captured this pawn on f4, rook takes b6, rook takes g4, king to f7, and you can see there's nothing white can do to win this game. But after king to d3, here white missed that move, and so basically after this move here black missed that move and he go for king to d8, and that's a mistake because now Tal immediately brings his king to e4 so that he can start targeting these pawns. But after that, king to c8, a good move by black, getting closer to this pawn so that he can move his rook. And now for white, it's better to capture this free pawn on g5, but instead Tal made a mistake by rook to b4. Yes, he wants to stop this g-pawn from pushing further, but he forgets that black have this amazing move rook to f5, taking complete control over this fifth rank. And now Tal tries to attack this rook by king to g4. Everything was fine till here, and now it's important for black to give a check from c4 square. And let's suppose if white defends this by pushing his pawn to f4. Now let's see how can black stop this pawn. Firstly, black will go closer to this pawn by king to d6, and if he goes for suppose rook to e5, trying to stop this king, which looks logical, not allowing this king as I said. But now black can go for rook to c8, threatening to give a check from g8 square. And if king to f5, rook to f8 check, king to e4, rook to g8, f5, rook to g4 check, king to f3, king takes e5, king takes g4, king to f6. And now I think you all understand this complete sequence. But in the actual game, after the move rook takes g5, here black made a mistake by rook to c3, and now this is completely losing because of the following sequence played by Tal. Here Tal firstly goes for king to rook to e5. Basically he wants so basically to win this endgame, white has to just do one thing. He has to stop this king from coming closer to this f pawn, and Tal exactly does that. And king to d2, and you can see now this rook completely stopped this king, and now king to d6. And obviously one thing is clear, that here white cannot push this pawn to f4 to defend this rook, because then black will go for rook to c8 so that he can give multiple checks. So to stop this black rook from coming to c8, here Tal goes for rook to e8, taking complete control over the 8th rank. And in this position, the final move by Tal is king to g5, and here Nikolai resigned. This is because now black can't win this endgame anyhow. This is because, let's suppose if this game continues like rook to g8 check, if he tries to give multiple checks to white, simply king to h6. And if rook to f8 attacking this pawn, simply rook to e4. If king to d6, basically if he attacks this rook, but simply king to g7 attacking this rook. Okay, and if rook to b8, now comes f5, rook to b7 check, king to h6, rook to b8, f6, rook to b1 threatening to give a check from h1, but simply king to g7, rook to g1 check, king to f8, king to d7, f7, rook to g3, rook to e7 check, king to d8, rook to e4. Basically we now want to give a check from this d4 square, so that this king goes there and we goes there, and then this, let me show you. Suppose if king to d7, rook to d4 check, king to e6, rook to king to e8, rook to f3, simply f8 equal to queen, and now that's all. This is your host Bison signing off. Bye bye.